discussing about the basic model of ethical decision making. Then we will try to discuss about the 7-step decision making process and the plus filter model of ethical decision making. So these three things we are going to discuss in today's session. Now we will start with the first one, that is the basic model of ethical decision making. This is considered as the primary model or a very basic model of ethical decision making. So we all are aware of the meaning of decision making. What is decision making? From Sem-I, you have studied this decision making. Only thing here, one more term is added to decision making, and that term is ethical. So far what we have learned is that whenever the decisions are to be taken by the managers, whenever the decisions are to be taken by the management of an organization, that decision should be based on one thing, and that thing is that whether that decision will add profit to the organization. This is what we have learned so far. Whatever decision we are taking, whether that decision is going to make the organization profitable or not. But when we talk about ethical decision making, so here we have to think about not only profits, but also about one very important thing, and that is called as ethics. That is moral, that is values. Whether the decision which we are taking is good for the employees of the organization or not. Whether the decision which we are taking is good for the customers or not, is good for the society at large or not. And that is called as ethical decision making. If a company is there which is manufacturing, say, electronic products, now company is aware that there is some mechanical problem in that particular product. The employees are also aware of that particular defect. But company does not share this information with the customers. For the sake of profit, the company has taken the decision that if we recall all the products, if we destroy all the products, or if we start replacing those products, it will be a great loss to the company. So the company decides that if we are talking about ethical decision making, and if it means that not only profit but the interest of the employee should also be considered, the company decides that they will give some sort of incentives to the employees so that the employees can convince the customer that the product doesn't have any defect in it. If such thing happens, then also it cannot be called as ethical decision making. Here the company cannot give an excuse that we were not concentrating on our profit only, but some part of that profit was shared with the employees also. And as It was in the interest of the employee. Employees got good incentives, more salary, more benefits. So we can say that this is called as ethical decision making. So ethical decision making means that you have to consider the interest of all the stakeholders, not only the company, not only the employees, but all the stakeholders. Customers' interest should also be considered. Society's interest should also be considered. Then only we can say that the decision is ethical. So this type of decision where the employee, for the sake of some profit, for the sake of some incentive, for the sake of some additional amount, if he's giving a wrong information to the customer, then it is not ethical. It is completely unethical. Now, for example, you might be aware of that a German company was there, automobile company. That company came to know that in its car, which it has already sold in the market, say thousands and lakhs of cars were sold, and later on, from the customer feedback, the dealer's feedback, the mechanic feedback, the company came to know that there was a manufacturing defect in the braking system of that car. Now, to save the image, to keep the image of the company intact in the mind of customers, the company recalled all the sold cars and they replaced the braking system, and it was all free of cost. And then again, the cars were sent to the owners. This is called as ethics, ethical decision making. If you have made a mistake, then you should accept that mistake, that this is a manufacturing defect which we have come to know. We will repair your car, or we will resolve this mechanical defect. No charges will be taken from the customer. With this, the company is making its brand image more intact with the customers. The customers will come to know that yes, there was a manufacturing defect. The company realized, and the company, most important part is the company accepted that there is a manufacturing defect. If such thing happens, we can say that this is called as ethical. So the decision of calling back thousands of cars, which costed the company very dearly, in crores the company spent on resolving that problem related to braking system. So company faced losses because the company thought that it was our mistake. We are responsible to solve this mistake. So we have to accept our mistake and we have to repair that braking system, replace that braking system with a new braking system. So all the cars were recalled and all the cars were, their braking system was replaced. That is called as ethics. Now, one more example I would like to give you. You might be aware of that 2 years back, Samsung has introduced mobiles under M series. One of the mobile is M31. Now, this M31 had some defect related to the circuit, its inbuilt circuit, जो अंदर का जो उसका सर्किट रहता है, सर्किट सिस्टम, that had some defect, and because of that, most of the customers who had purchased that particular phone, they were after the Samsung customer care, but the company never accepted that it was a manufacturing defect. In fact, the customer care or the dealers, they shared their view, they shared their feedback that this is the phone which has too many complaints. बहुत सारी complaints है इस फोन की, इसका मदरबोर्ड खराब है, और ज्यादातर कस्टमर की यही शिकायत है कि 1 साल से पहले या 1 साल के बाद इसका मदरबोर्ड खराब है या इसके मदरबोर्ड में प्रॉब्लम आ जाता है. What was expected is that if at all it was a manufacturing defect, company should have accepted that. But if the company doesn't accept, then what will be the reaction of the customer? Okay, the customer has purchased the mobile and there was a defect within 1 year or after 1 year. That defect is not resolved. Then if such thing happens, the brand image of the company gets hurt. Now, this particular person may not purchase the Samsung product again, or this person may share the negative feedback with the others also, and it will definitely have a negative impact. So one company recalled the cars and they replaced. The other company which thought that no, if we accepted, then we need to recall all the handsets, we have to replace all the motherboards, which will be very costly for the company. The company decided that anyone who raises the voice, who rigorously makes the follow-up, that person's complaint will only be resolved, or that person's that motherboard will be replaced free of cost, others will not. तो जो कंप्लेंट करेगा, जो मेल करेगा, जो हमारे पीछे फॉलोअप करेगा, उसका हम लोग मदरबोर्ड बदल देंगे. जो नहीं करता है कुछ भी, उसे हमें कुछ भी करने की जरूरत नहीं. Now, this particular decision cannot be called as ethical decision. If at all it was not proved that there was a manufacturing defect, but as the number of complaints were more, I had read a research article. They had mentioned that the number of complaints were very high. There they had taken the views of the dealers or service centers also, their employees. So they had also shared their views by saying that this particular phone had most problems, or most of the customers who are coming to the customer care center, they are coming with this particular phone only, and the problem is same, but the company never accepted. So whether it was genuine or not, we are not very sure. But the thing is that this cannot be called as ethical. When you are just concentrating on profit, and for the sake of profit only, if you are taking a decision, that cannot be called as ethical decision. Ethical decision means when you are thinking of the interest of all the stakeholders who are involved in that particular product, then we can say yes, that can be called as ethical decision making. So now we will discuss the basic model of ethical decision making. It starts with identify the problem, then identify the constituents, diagnose the situation, analyze your options, make your choice, and act. That is the basic, that is the general, that is the common model of ethical decision making. Identify the problem. Now, whenever decisions are to be taken, they are taken to solve a particular problem. कोई प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करनी हो तो डिसीजन लेना पड़ता है. यहां पर सिर्फ हम लोग ये देखेंगे कि that decision is not a plain decision, but this decision is ethical decision which should be in the interest of all the stakeholders. अगर हम सिर्फ अपने बारे में सोचेंगे या सिर्फ अपने बारे में और एम्प्लॉय के बारे में सोचेंगे, तो दैट इज नॉट इथिकल. जब हम सबके बारे में सोचते हैं तो दैट इज इथिकल, राइट? So identify the problem is the first one. First, we need to identify the problem for which a decision is to be taken. Then we need to understand the problem and understand the interest of all the stakeholders associated with that particular problem. Next is identify the constituents. Constituents here means identify the factors related to the problem. If the problem is related to salary, what are the factors related to that problem of salary? Whether the salary which is given to the employee is not as per the norms of the company, or some unwanted deductions are made in the salary of the employees, or untimely payment of salary, that in the month of January the salary was credited on say 7th of January, then in February it was credited on 20th of Feb, then in March there was no salary, in August the salary got credited on 1st, then in again July it got credited on 25th. If such thing happens, then we can say that these are the factors which have resulted in the problem related to that salary. Suppose if problem is related to promotion of an employee who feels, or the company is also aware that he is the best performer and he should be promoted in the organization, but because of the influence from the higher authority, a person who was close to the higher authority was promoted instead of this real candidate. So we need to understand the factors. and that is called as identify the constituents. Now the next one is diagnose the situation. We need to diagnose the situation. This diagnosis is very much similar to the diagnosis which is done by the doctor. Whenever we approach a doctor with, say, headache, cold, fever, or any other related symptoms or any other problem, whenever we are not feeling well and we approach a doctor, the first thing which the doctor does is he or she tries to diagnose the problem, or diagnose that what has caused this problem. अगर बुखार आया तो क्यों आया, सर्दी हुई तो क्या खाया था, ये सब चीजें हमसे पूछी जाती हैं. क्यों पूछी जाती हैं? ये इसलिए पूछी जाती हैं ताकि डॉक्टर जो भी बीमारी हमें हुई है, जो भी तकलीफ हमें हुई है, उसे अच्छे से डायग्नोस कर सके. Now same is the situation here also in ethical decision making. When we know what the problem is, when we know what are the factors which are associated with the problem, or what are the factors which have contributed to the problem or resulted in that particular problem, after that we need to diagnose the situation. Because of that factors, because of that problem, what is the present situation in the organization, whether it is smooth, whether it is harmonious, or whether it is not so harmonious, not so smooth. That is the third point. Next is analyze your option. Analyze your option means that you need to think about multiple solutions. That okay, this is the problem. Salary is the problem. Promotion is the problem. Then you have to think about solutions also. That what could be the solution of this problem, right? That is analyzing your option. Here, when we say that analyzing your option, you should be ready with 2, 3, 4 options. If one person or some of the employees are not happy with a particular policy in the organization which is related to, say, incentive, which is related to increment, or which is related to promotion, then you should have multiple alternatives, that how you can solve this problem by keeping all the interest of all the stakeholders intact, that everyone is happy and the problem is solved, right? So that is analyzing your options. Now here you are analyzing the or evaluating all the options. अगर मैंने ये ऑप्शन लिया, अगर मैंने ये डिसीजन लिया, तो उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा? अगर दूसरा वाला मैंने कोई डिसीजन ले लिया तो उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा? अगर मेरा जो थर्ड ऑप्शन है वो अगर मैंने इंप्लीमेंट किया तो उसका क्या होगा? सो हियर we are trying to analyze our option. Then the next one is make your choice. Now here in this situation, it is assumed that we have analyzed all the options. We have got, say, 3 options, 4 options, or 5 options. Now we have to make a choice. कि 5 ऑप्शंस या 5 डिसीजन हम लोग एक ही चीज के बारे में इंप्लीमेंट नहीं कर सकते. एक व्यक्ति सैलरी को लेके या 10 लोग सैलरी को लेके खुश नहीं है, तो कैसे उन लोगों की नाराजगी दूर की जाए? तो 4-5 डिसीजन लिए गए थे या शॉर्टलिस्ट किए गए थे कि अगर हम ऐसा करेंगे तो अच्छा होगा, अगर हम ऐसा करेंगे तो और अच्छा होगा, अगर हम वैसा करेंगे तो शायद अच्छा हो सकता है. तो यहाँ पर जो नेक्स्ट 5th स्टेज है, हियर you have to take your you have to say finalize your choice. कि जो 5 डिसीजन आपने शॉर्टलिस्ट किए हैं उसमें से कौन सा सबसे बेस्ट है, वो आपको यहाँ पर शॉर्टलिस्ट करना पड़ेगा. एंड द लास्ट वन इज एक्ट. द डिसीजन विच यू हैव शॉर्टलिस्टेड, that decision is to be implemented to resolve the problem, and that is called as basic model of ethical decision making. Now the next one is the 7-step decision making process. Now this is very much related to the previous one, that is the ethical making decision making. So here 7-step decision. So whatever the decision is to be taken by the organization, it this theory says that the decision goes through 5 stages, and that is why it is called as 7-step decision making process. Now the first one, it starts with determine the fact, what, who, where, how, when. So first we need to determine the fact that on what matter the decision is to be taken. What is the problem which is to be resolved? How we are going to solve that problem. So first thing is determine the fact. Second is determine the ethical issue. Ethical issue should be determined. कि क्या ethical issue है, whether the policies which are written in the policy document of the company are not implemented properly or are not implemented as it is by the organization. If such thing happens, again it is called as unethical. The salary which is being promised at the time of joining to most of the employees, that salary is not credited in their accounts, but less salary is being credited. If such thing happens, again it can be called as unethical. So we need to define the ethical issue, that how we can make any decision a ethical decision if we take the interest of all the stakeholders with us. Next one, identify major principles, rules, and values. Whenever we are taking a ethical decision, those decisions should be based on the principles, on the basis of values, on the basis of rules. Next one, specify the alternatives. Now here, specify the alternatives means that for taking decision, you should have some alternatives with you. Now here we can say that nowadays many companies are having participative style of management. Participative style of management means that in these companies, the decision making, in the decision making process, the employees are also included. Suppose a decision related to the minimizing the wastage in the company is to be taken. Now, because of competition, because of less orders, the company has come to know that it is not earning more profit, and the most important reason for that is that the wastage during the manufacturing process of that particular product is more. And because the wastage is more, the loss is also more. So here the company has to think about the alternatives, but those alternatives should be ethical. It should be based on some values, and that is called as specify the alternatives. Now the company has come to know that there is a problem, but how that problem can be tackled, how that problem can be solved. And here the company has to come up with number of alternatives, or we were saying that whenever the decision is to be taken, on number of occasions many companies give chance of taking decision to the employees. Now in this situation, what is expected is that the employees who are associated with that particular problem, they can give their solutions. One solution can be given, two solutions, 10 solutions, or maybe more than that solutions can be given by number of employees. Now the final authority is with the manager or the management. They will decide that out of the 10 decisions which have been suggested by the subordinates, which one is the best. Now this thing is to be decided by the manager, right? And that is called as specify the alternative. Next is compare values and alternatives. Then there has to be a comparison between the values and the decision. That is the alternative decisions. अब सैलरी को लेकर एक प्रॉब्लम है जिसके बारे में सोच विचार चल रहा है. Now here compare values and alternatives. Values means first value can be that there should not be any unfair deduction from the salary of the employee. It should not happen that one of the employees got late in the organization by half an hour, and as the organization's rules are very strict in nature, that employee's 3 days salary was deducted. So एक व्यक्ति जो 10 मिनट लेट आया या आधा घंटे लेट आया, उसका 3 दिन का सैलरी काट लिया गया. Now here the company cannot give an excuse that this is mentioned in our company manual. Now this manual is being shared to all the employees, and all the employees are aware of the fact that if you report any day in the company 1 hour late, your 3 days salary will be deducted. Even if there is a contract, there is a appointment order given to the employee stating this condition, that if you come 1 hour late, your 3 days salary will be deducted. Even if it has been read by the employee and it is signed by the employee and submitted to the HR department of the company will not get an excuse that look, the employee himself or herself has given it in writing that I am ready for the decision, that if I come late by half an hour or 1 hour, you can deduct my 3 days salary. So this may sound legal because it has been given in writing by the employee, but this can never be called as ethical. Why it can never be called as ethical and it can be called as legal? The reason is very simple. Ethics talks about the interest of all the stakeholders. It doesn't talk about only profit, profit, and profit. Along with profit, interest of all the stakeholders is very important if we talk about the values and alternatives. Next one is assess the consequences and make your decision. Now, assess the consequences. Before making the decision, the organization, the management, the manager has to anticipate the consequences of the decision. कि अगर हमने ये डिसीजन लिया तो उसके क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हो सकते हैं। 4 हमने डिसीजन शॉर्टलिस्ट किए हैं, तो पहले डिसीजन का क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस हो सकता है, दूसरे डिसीजन का क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस हो सकता है, और लास्ट डिसीजन का क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस हो सकता है। नाउ दीज थिंग्स आर टू बी असेस्ड, evaluated, verified, checked before taking the decision. If more people are getting affected negatively with a particular decision, then that decision can never be called as a ethical decision, right? So that decisions, the shortlisted decisions, 2 4 5 डिसीजन जो भी शॉर्टलिस्ट किए गए हैं उसको इवैल्यूएट करना पड़ेगा, और उसके बाद जो सबसे अच्छा डिसीजन रहेगा उसे इंप्लीमेंट करना पड़ेगा, एंड दैट इज द 7 स्टेप decision making model. Now the last one is plus filter model. I'll read the lines which are written on the slide, then we will discuss, and then we will end the session. So plus filter model, it means ethical decision making process is a process of evaluating and choosing among the alternatives in a manner consistent with ethical principles. Normally, it is said that we should never compromise on our principles, on our values, on our ethics. कि जब हम जॉब करेंगे या अगर हम काम कर रहे हैं, तो अगर हम सिर्फ पैसे के लिए कर रहे हैं, तो we will never think of ethics because we are working only for money. चाहे वो इथिकल हो, चाहे वो अनइथिकल हो, सिर्फ पैसा होना चाहिए। अगर ऐसी सोच है तो that cannot be called as ethical, right? So ethical decisions are based on ethical principles, right? Now in plus filter model, what happens is, first we need to define the problem, then we have to look for identifying the available alternatives. Third stage is we need to evaluate the identified alternatives. Fourth one or fourth stage here is then make the decision. Fifth one is implement the decision, and sixth one is evaluate the decision. So the first point is define the problem. क्या problem है उसको define करना पहला stage. Second stage is identify available alternative solutions. to the problem. अब जो प्रॉब्लम है इसका कोई अल्टरनेटिव सॉल्यूशन है क्या? अगर है तो क्या है? या इसके मल्टीपल सॉल्यूशंस हो सकते हैं, ये भी हो सकता है, वो भी हो सकता है और वो भी हो सकता है. Now this, in the second stage, we need to check whether the available alternatives are ethically correct or not. If yes, then it can be implemented. If no, then it cannot be. Next one is evaluate the identified alternatives. Once the alternatives are identified, say 2 alternatives or 3 alternatives are shortlisted or are identified, after that, the third stage says that we need to evaluate the identified alternative. एक प्रॉब्लम है कंपनी में जिसे सॉल्व करना है. अब 3 तरीके से वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो सकता है. मतलब कि we have identified the alternatives. Next one, evaluate the identified alternative. Then we have to evaluate, we need to measure that which alternative is the best alternative. That evaluation takes place. Then the fourth stage is make the decision. Once the manager has evaluated the shortlisted decision, the shortlisted alternatives, then the manager tries to find out the best possible alternative, and that is called as make the decision. जो भी बेस्ट अल्टरनेटिव था, 3 तरीके से प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व किया जा सकता था. जो तरीका ऐसा लगा कि सबके हित में है, सबके लिए बेहतर है, तो वो तरीका अगर इंप्लीमेंट होता है तो दैट इज स्टेज नंबर 4 or step number 4. Then is implement the decision. So whatever decision which was taken, that decision should be implemented in the organization. And last one is evaluate the decision. Now after implementing, immediate evaluation is not possible. For doing evaluation, certain period of time is required. Maybe 1 month, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. Then only you can make up your mind regarding performance of employees of the company, right? Now here we need to evaluate कि जो डिसीजन हमने लिया वो डिसीजन सही है या गलत, या सही था या गलत. अगर वो डिसीजन सही था, इथिकल था, then that decision will be, say, profitable for all. So evaluation always takes place once implementation has taken place. एक प्रॉब्लम था जिसके 3 सॉल्यूशन शॉर्टलिस्ट हुए थे. जो पहला सॉल्यूशन था ऐसा लगा वो बेस्ट सॉल्यूशन है, तो उसको इम्प्लीमेंट कर दिया गया. अब उस सॉल्यूशन को इम्प्लीमेंट किया, whether that solution was the correct solution, that the company will come to know once it starts doing evaluation of the decision. डिसीजन तो ले लिया, पर क्या वो डिसीजन सही है, क्या वो डिसीजन सबके हित में है? This the company will come to know when the evaluation of these decisions will start taking place, and that is the evaluation, that is called as evaluate the decision. So this is all related to our chapter number 5. Now the chapter number 6. What is chapter number 6? Can anybody tell me what is chapter number 6? You can unmute yourself. What is chapter number 6? Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So chapter number 6 is related to some cases related to the business ethics. Failure, or we can say failure of business ethics. The current cases, the most famous cases, which were the cases of failure of business ethics in the organization, that we need to discuss in chapter number 6. 6, 7 very important cases, recent cases, or very famous cases we had already discussed in the last semester under corporate governance. The case related to Kingfisher Airline, the case related to Videocon or ICICI Bank, the case related to Satyam Computer System, the case related to Cyrus Mistry and Tata Group, the case related to Punjab National Bank. So all these cases which we need to discuss in this semester, we have already discussed in the last semester. So from tomorrow, in brief, we will try to recall these cases. Not all the cases, but 2-3 cases we'll try to recall. So maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we will be able to complete the syllabus of this subject. So with this, we will conclude today's session. Tomorrow, please come prepared on 2-3 cases, particularly related to the Kingfisher Airline, then the case which is related to the case of Videocon and ICICI Bank, and the case related to Punjab National Bank. So these 3 cases we will be discussing in brief, because already we have discussed at length in the last semester. So in tomorrow's session, we will discuss in brief about these 3 cases, and then we will decide that whether these cases can be continued in day after tomorrow's session, or we will end by tomorrow itself, right? So in case of any query, you can give me a call, or you can send me your message, your query on WhatsApp or mail, right? So thank you everyone for being present in today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Neha here.
Thank you.
Sir, do we have
Yes,
any
Neha.
update regarding the previous exam papers?
So
Yeah.
sorry. I
Yes,
just
sir.
forgot to check that. Tomorrow I'll let you know,
Okay,
definitely.
sir.
Or
Yes, sir.
just send me a message in the afternoon.
Yes, sir.
tomorrow definitely I'll do it.
Okay, sir. I'll do that.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.